If you're dating or looking for love, have you ever caught yourself thinking, why does this always happen to me? Am I attracting dogs, or is this just the state of the market? At some point, it starts to feel like the right person is an illusion. I gotta tell you, I do not miss dating. Well, I kinda do. I miss that feeling of going out at night and feeling like anything could happen. I could meet someone that changes the course of my life. I failed to ask myself, however, if I really wanted my person to be someone I met snorting lines off a bathroom counter in a random penthouse, owned by a guy who was trying to buy affection from women who ultimately only were interested in his money. But who has time for such questions when you're dating? That's the problem, though. There are so many questions that we forget to ask ourselves, or maybe we're too afraid to ask ourselves. If you're anything like I was, you're so focused on attracting someone that you don't stop to think, but who am I attracted to? I'm being kind of hard on myself. I think there are benefits in flailing around in hopeless relationships for a while. It's like the metaphor of the missile. It doesn't follow a straight path. Instead, it veers off course, continuously adjusting until it reaches its target. There's one realization that does sting a bit, though. It took me far too long to develop standards beyond looks, and even those were kind of vague. If I considered standards at all, they were about superficial qualities: coolness, humor, the car someone drove, their attractiveness. But for years, I had no standards about how I deserved to be treated. If I was cheated on, talked down to, or mistreated, I saw it more as a challenge. I felt the need to prove that I was worth being treated well. This was all subconscious, of course, but incredibly prevalent. I spent my late teens and early 20s trying to increase my own value to attract someone amazing. And that might sound positive at first, but there's a deeper layer to it. What it really means is that I didn't value myself as I was. I believed my worth came from superficial qualities: my looks, my job, my skills. I even used my Adderall prescription to draw men in. And it works sometimes. Gotta love those class 2 narcotics. Things started to change when I began to build myself up in other ways. Confidence, self-respect, clarity. I gained clarity on who my ideal person was, what a beautiful relationship looked like, and how I viewed partnership. I realized that I didn't need to work on myself to be attractive or lovable. I needed to trust that I am already lovable and get clear on who was worthy of me. But it's easier said than done, especially if you found yourself in a cycle of the same relationship issues over and over again, because that often means that you're caught in a belief system that is subconsciously shaping your reality. And if you don't confront these patterns, decouple from them, and cultivate new ones, you could be sentencing yourself to a life of rinse and repeat. So maybe it's time to ask the hard questions. And that's what this episode is about: how to raise your standards, set intentions, and find your person. Our guest is Matthew Hussey. He's a New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and coach, specializing in confidence and relational intelligence. His YouTube channel is #1 in the world for love advice and over 500 million views. He also writes a weekly newsletter and is host of the podcast Love Life with Matthew Hussey. Today, he's going to teach us his proven approach to find love, but also feel confident and in control of your own happiness. So 3 key things we will learn are the power of adjusting our reactions by just 1% to create a whole new reality in our relationships, how our identities shape our habits, and the importance of evolving our sense of self to inspire change, and the crucial role of clear boundaries and standards in forging healthy, fulfilling relationships.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real about something. Workplace stress is not just part of the job anymore. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal, and it is not sustainable. I used to think that grinding through stress was some kind of badge of honor. Push harder, sleep less, ignore what your body was telling you. And it nearly broke me when I was working for startups. And look, maybe that voice in your head telling you to make a change is right. Maybe you do need to quit your job or completely flip your life. But whether you're making big moves or just trying to survive your current situation, you need tools to handle it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without the guilt, how to trust your intuition instead of second guessing yourself constantly, how to make better decisions from a place of clarity instead of chaos. And BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 therapists. They've got a 4.9 rating from 1.7 million reviews because it actually works. You can talk to someone from anywhere, and you can switch therapists anytime if it's not the right fit. A vacation won't fix chronic stress, but the right support can help you navigate whatever comes next. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. My listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. Can we talk about back to school chaos for a second? The kids are getting back into routines, everyone's schedules are crazy, and suddenly you're supposed to have dinner on the table every night like some kind of magician. But want to know what I figured out? Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free, which is why I love Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes the stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, it's a huge lifesaver on those busy weeknights. I personally love their smart cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements tailored to my tastes and needs. Plus, I love the kids' snack section where I get these really easy snacks to just keep in the car or throw in our to-go bags or lunch boxes for those of you who need them. They screen out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. They only source high-quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, and they carry trusted brands like Oatly and Vital Farms. The time that I have gotten back has been incredible. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE.
6 months in, that person will come to me and say, Matthew, here are all the facts. What do you think? Do you think this person likes me? Where do you think it's going? I want to say, I should be the second person you're talking to about this, but instead I'm the first. How have you not had this conversation with them about what the two of you are, or how you see things, or what your intentions are? Why hasn't that happened yet? And the reason it hasn't happened is because they're afraid to have the conversation in case they get an answer they don't want. It's far easier to carry on in the romance of it all and to just bask in that and feel good in that and continue the hope that it might go somewhere than it is to have a conversation that might spell the end of whatever this thing is.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
So I am curious, what inspired you to become the love expert that you appear to be?
Oh, God. I don't know that I started thinking I was a love expert. I don't know if I feel like a love expert now, but I was always fascinated by, well, I suppose my earliest fascination was how I could be braver in my own love life because I felt like I was, as a teenager, I waited to be chosen all the time. I was too afraid to do the choosing and to walk over and speak to someone I really liked. So I was my first client in that sense. And over time, I just became really fascinated by people and ways that we could break out of our shell and ways that we could start to, unlearn certain patterns that maybe were tripping us up or hurting us. And nowadays I'm, I started with very, very small groups when I first began, talking to 5, 10 people at a time. And that was 17 years ago now. So now we have a YouTube channel with 500 million views and books and all the rest of it. But yeah, I really love learning about people. For me, it was kind of a revelation to understand that I wasn't just stuck with my shyness or my own fear of rejection, that there were actually things that I could do to have more of an impact in the world. And I didn't just apply that to my love life, I applied it to everything in my life. And it just so happens it ended up being what I enjoyed talking about with other people too, not just using for myself.
I love the way you phrase that, of just the difference in waiting to be chosen and then the realization that you can choose. That's such a big part of what I teach in all areas of life. It's like so many people believe that they're victims of their circumstances or their habits or their genealogy. Just recently, my cousin was getting irritated because she was like, I just found out my dad's dyslexic, and he should have told me because maybe I wouldn't have had kids. And I'm like, really? It's so interesting. And I'm like, now I know where all of these ideas came from before, where I can't imagine now, knowing what I know, not wanting to have kids because there is a pattern within my family. Instead, I use that opportunity to say, how can I be the one to stop or change this pattern to something more empowering so I don't pass it down to my children?
Yeah, there's the assumption there that if my children have dyslexia, they won't be able to enjoy life. uh, you know, it's those things. Look, firstly, I think the hard things in our life, or the things we wrestle with, they make us. They are the things that, for me at least, the hardest things in my life have given me some of the greatest gifts and some of the parts of myself that I'm most proud of and most thankful for. So there's that. And there's also that, I think when it comes to, let's say choosing instead of being chosen, we wait to be chosen when we think we just have to accept what we're given in life, or what other people tell us we're worth, what other people tell us we're capable of, who other people tell us we're worthy of. And I think life's a lot more interesting than that. I think a lot of us go through life over respecting other people. And I wouldn't suggest for one second we shouldn't respect other people, but I think, over respect other people in the sense that we constantly overestimate everyone else and we constantly underestimate ourselves. It's easy to feel like other people are imbued with some special source, some fairy dust that we don't have, or we don't have access to, and that's what allows them to do what they do. But I've felt for a long time like what makes some people go out and do things is they just decide to. They just decide, I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to go and start a YouTube channel. I'm going to decide that this is the kind of person I would like to date, or I'm going to decide that this is how I'd like to be treated by people in my love life. Why not you is a good question to ask, because we spend so much of our lives thinking, why me? And we don't seem to think anyone else needs a special reason why they should be able to date this person or have this life or this career. I try to remember. Christopher Hitchens once said, "Remember, whenever you're intimidated by another person, they're just another primate." And there's something useful. There's something useful about that. It stops us from overestimating everybody else.
That's been something I've really been focusing on the last couple of years, because I'm constantly dealing with that too. And I remember when I finally stepped out of my comfort zone to create Mind Love. And then I was like, oh, I did it. And it's successful. And this is awesome. Well, what I didn't realize was how often I would have to do that. If I want to continuously grow, I need to kind of keep leaping into that unknown. And so I realized I was in a lull for like a year or two. Mind you, I was pregnant, having babies and all that. So it was
That
a
old lull.
productive lull. But then I was like, okay, now what am I going to choose? What am I going to choose when I come back into my business? Am I going to choose that? What do I want out of my life? And that getting really clear while also realizing that you don't have 100% clarity until you start taking action. You don't have confidence until you prove that you can through your own actions. And so that self-belief, it's like a lot of people are waiting for that. And in relationship, it's like waiting for someone to tell them that they're worthy. When really it's just that you have to choose. And it reminds me of something you were talking about. You mentioned this significant disconnect between the public perception of you as an ideal partner and then the reality of your actions in relationships. And I just love the story because it's kind of the opposite. Usually we're dealing with this like underestimating ourselves rather than all these other people overestimating us. And I just resonated because there was a period of time when I first started and like, I started this podcast because I don't have this figured out. So tell us about that moment of or realization that led you to kind of acknowledge the gap and start making changes. Tell us about that moment of or realization that led you to kind of acknowledge the gap and start making changes.
Let's talk about how much I sucked. I I I just remember for a long time getting these comments about, well, what a wonderful person I must have been to date. And of course, I knew better because I was out there dating people as me. And, I had a lot to learn and I had a lot to work on. And for a long time in my own love life, I wasn't very good at making myself happy. I was good at doing what I had taught people from the beginning, which was creating opportunity. That was really where I started. And nowadays, I'm much more known for helping people with the deeper work they need to do that prevents them from finding love and prevents them from connecting with their worth. But back then, it was really about me saying, look, I know how to, if you feel like you're stuck in your love life, I know how to help you create more opportunity. And I knew how to do that for myself. But there's a difference between knowing how to create opportunity and knowing how to be happy. And it took me a lot longer to figure out how to find a sense of peace and contentment this part of my life, because I think for a very long time I was lost. When you're lost and you're confused, you're quite dangerous to other people because it doesn't stop you from falling in love. It doesn't stop other people from falling in love with you, but you don't know how to make yourself happy, so you certainly don't know how to make anyone else happy. It makes you someone who has the potential to do a lot of damage. And so that was my path for a while. I didn't date in healthy ways, for sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't. Sometimes, I was dating like a sort of dopamine addict who was just looking for the next novelty and variety and trying to find that, when is that moment coming where I'm going to feel what I'm supposed to feel that makes me decide this is it. And I got scared when I wasn't finding that moment because I thought at a certain point you keep telling yourself, well, it's because I haven't met the right person yet. And if that goes on for long enough, you start worrying, uh-oh, maybe I'm broken because there's other people around me who seem to have found a sense of certainty about what they want. And here I am still not quite knowing what I want or having some idea, but never really seeming to find it. And that was sort of, I suppose, the beginning of me trying to gain a deeper level of awareness about myself and about what was going on. And the path I went down for all of that has been so much of what I wrote about in this book, because the truth is there are so many people that are struggling out there to find love and struggling to feel the way that they're told they're supposed to feel, or that keep running headfirst into bad situations with people who don't treat them well. I was on both sides of it. I times in my life where I was really breaking someone else's heart, and a couple of times where I was very severely on the other end of the heartbreak. And I think what both had in common was that I couldn't seem to find what I was looking for in either direction. I like so many people, was either, was chasing someone who didn't seem to really want me or treat me very well, or be with someone who adored me, and I found myself doubting whether it was the right relationship. And that can be a really difficult place to be, because you tend to just cycle between, if you're not careful, you spend your life cycling between, you know, being excited and treated badly, and feeling an anxious wreck, and being in situations where you feel safe but dissatisfied. That was a big part of my journey. And like I said, in this book, I get more vulnerable than I've ever been in the past, where I felt perhaps like so many people, if I was more vulnerable about those things, then, I wouldn't be as lovable, which I've since gotten over.
That's probably a good feeling. I think of that period of time where I remember when I first really started to get clear on what I wanted. And there was a period where it was like really euphoric. And then there was a while of, I almost wished I could go back into where the whole phase of ignorance is bliss type, because then you move into the conscious incompetence. You start to really learn what you need, what would be healthy, what you desire.
What did conscious incompetence look like for you?
Oh, goodness. Which time? Yeah. Conscious incompetence for me. I mean, I had a really deep downward spiral. There was just a number of traumas, my dad dying, and me creating meaning about myself through all of it. And in that, I made a ton of bad decisions mixed in with things that happened to me that were definitely not my fault. But I can also be honest about, I was putting myself in situations to increase the chances of certain things happening, to attract people and settling for people more so that were horrible. And it culminated in me going to jail for somebody else's crime and getting a felony and having to dig my way out of that kind of hell. And I had to do something different. So I was reading and getting really clear, and it felt magical at first. But then it would be moments, and then it would be like old patterns coming back. I was still dealing with bulimia, and it was like a 10-year journey of really, really slow steps of making better choices combined with really horrible choices. And then being so aware of how far the hole I had dug was and how deep it was, and how much I needed to climb out of it, wondering still like, okay, now I've been doing this work for 7 years and I just relapsed into bulimia again. Am I broken? Am I ever going to be fixed? And so mine was a whole lot of that. But I think in that space, it's the best container for creating the compassion that you need to kind of just move up another level. Because if it was just that easy of like, oh, I've been doing all this wrong, let me do it right now, then how did you really grow? Like, what was the incubator for your own growth, other than just, it's not just the knowledge, it's the practice?
Well, I think enough pain will make you braver in the sense that you don't need confidence when you just realize you can't go back to something, or something's just broken and it's not working for you anymore. I don't even think you need more self-worth or more confidence. You just know, I can't go back there, and this isn't going to work if I keep doing this. There's a kind of a certainty that comes out of doing something enough times and it not working, and going, well, clearly peace or happiness in any sustainable way doesn't reside there. So for me, that was a big part of it. And I started to see I had started to admire different things, different qualities, different values. I saw people in my life who were in this cycle of never enough and chasing constantly. And I stopped admiring it in any way. I just stopped. It's a bit like my work. These days, the people I admire career-wise are very different from the people I might have admired in the beginning. Now I'm looking at people who find, who say no to constant growth and are brave enough to do that because there's something about their life as it is now that they want to retain, or they want more time with their family, or they they don't feel the need to keep leveling up. They're quite happy with what they've created, and it feels good, and it allows them to do the things they want to do. I admire people like that. I'm surrounded by people who keep saying yes, or who keep trying to grow at any cost. And I it can be inspiring, and it can be, very an energetic kind of thing to be around, but it's not those aren't my heroes anymore. My heroes are happy people. And I think the same was true in my love life. Not only did I realize, well, the way I'm dating isn't working for me, but I started looking around at the men in particular that I really admired, whose values I felt echoed my own on a deeper level, and who I wanted to be like. And they were making different choices, or they had made different choices in their lives. That they'd made choices to go all in on a relationship, and to build and to commit and to create this incredible family. And I started to look at that, and I liked the way they lived, and I liked the emotion they were achieving. And I think what helped me is seeing people that I really respected and admired in those positions, as opposed to, I think what I had seen too much of in my life is people who had decided to get married or to commit or to be in have a family, and did a lot of complaining about it. Did a lot of complaining about the old ball and chain, and when you have kids, this happens, and stay single, do this, do that. I think I had a lot of associations in my head that were very negative ones on a deep level about what it meant to go down that path of committing more and making choices. And so I think for a long time, I kept my choices open with no kind of, in a way, just like for the sake of keeping choices open, because I was afraid of what it would mean if I actually went all in. And the more I started to admire and respect different people, different kinds of people in life, the more it naturally started to guide my decision making in a different direction. And of course, I met my wife Audrey, who she quite quickly was not prepared to, put up with any of my nonsense early on when we were dating. And she she wasn't just someone who was very clear about her boundaries. She was someone who was utterly delightful to be around, and so loving and so kind and so warm, and saw me, really saw me, accepted me, which is different from tolerating me. She didn't tolerate the things that she didn't like, but she accepted the the deeper parts of me and where all of that came from and how I'd arrived there. And uh, her sort of way of having standards, but at the same time having so much love, was a really potent combination. I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want to lose this incredible human being. And I realized I'd have to make some choices if I didn't want to lose this incredible human being. So that helped. But even before I met Audrey, it was already clear to me something. She says the night she met me, she said, I could tell from the night I met you, you were searching. Like, you were searching for something. You were not in the best of places. And she was right. There was a kind of, something was not working. I didn't exactly know how to change it yet. I think I would describe myself as being in that place of conscious incompetence that you talk about. And yet I hadn't conditioned myself out of the old behaviors yet. I was still fumbling my way through them, but realizing none of them were working.
I used to envy people like your wife, women like your wife. I remember being in high school And I had some friends who had standards and I equated it to them being beautiful enough to deserve standards, honestly. And I just remember like hearing one of my guy friends talking about how they were like trying to hook up with so and so, and she said no, she's not ready. And I remember saying, I wonder what it would be like to have that kind of strength, to not feel like that wouldn't be the moment where you'd never see them again.
Wow. Yeah.
And I got there eventually, I think, but it was even difficult. Like in college, people would laugh because I was known for just like people would see me at like 4 a.m, like sprinting back to my dorm or the sorority house or whatever in stilettos, because the amount of times where my way of boundaries was finding myself in a situation where things would go too far if I stayed. So I'd wait till they went to the bathroom and then I'd literally run. That was how I had boundaries. And so I got to a different place where I wouldn't put myself in situations, but I don't even know if I ever got to, maybe I did. I don't know. That there's a period of time that's also a blur. But yeah, I eventually understood what I wanted and very quickly met my husband after that. So there wasn't like a lot of dating room in between my super unhealthy time and my very healthy time. I'm curious because I know how many women can relate to that, of like not being feeling like they deserve the standards that they have. How did you see that your wife enforced those? Like, how did you gain all that knowledge of like her having these beautiful boundaries in such a loving way? How did she express those to you?
Oh man, masterfully, actually. I remember a time when because we were, before we were even in a relationship, I was living in Los Angeles. She was in London. We actually met when I was on a trip back to see family. And having come back to Los Angeles and not being in the same place she was with my intentions, I started to text less and less and call less. And it just got to the point where a couple of weeks would go by and I wouldn't have sent a message. And she wasn't sitting there waiting around. She just had, at some point, she wrote me off because she just decided, oh, okay. I thought perhaps I was dealing with someone who wanted things to go somewhere. I'm now realizing I'm with someone who's actually got no intention for this to go anywhere. Which, by the way, even that is just an important juncture, because that's the point where a lot of people start engaging in a fictional story of what they have, where they no longer pay attention to what's actually going on. They're just living in the potential of where it could go and where they want it to go, and where they think it should go based on the connection they have with someone. And Audrey never did that. She allowed reality to write the story, not her desire. I remember sending her a message after a couple of weeks of not really saying much. And I said, I miss you. And this would, again, I feel like this is almost fork in the road too, for people who go right or left. The temptation when we really like someone and they send us an affectionate message is to just jump for joy and start things up again and just say, I'm so glad they feel this way. I miss you too. Can we get on the phone? I want to speak to you. She didn't do that, nor was she excited by my message. I said, I miss you. And she sent me a message saying, she said, hi, I hope you're well. To be honest, when you say that, I don't really know what to say back. We haven't felt that close for a while now. And rightly or wrongly, this message comes across as a bid for attention. She was right, by the way. It was, of course, that's where it was coming from. It wasn't coming from any sinister place, but it was coming from a kind of a feeling of, I'm just reaching out because I need to feel something. But there was no intentionality behind the message. And people often confuse the two. Attention is not intention. And I was giving attention, but I didn't have intention. And she picked up on that immediately, which is why she said what she said. And one of the things I'm fascinated by language. Language has always been a love for me, and language matters. It's why, in this book, Love Life, I wrote an entire chapter on having hard conversations. It's called Have Hard Conversations. And in this chapter, I give literal things that people can say. And it's not because I'm trying to script anyone's life. It's because language matters. And sometimes when we see it spelled out for us, we realize where we go wrong when we're trying to communicate standards and where we give away our power. When she said, if you look at what she did, she said, hey, I hope you're well. So there was still some warmth to the message. She didn't suddenly become very cold. She was same warm human being. But she said, when you send this, I don't really know what to say, which is really her pointing out the disconnect between what I'm saying and what I've been doing. Then she said, we haven't been that close for a while now, which is shining a light on the elephant in the room, which is that you haven't been texting me. And now you're saying, I miss you. That doesn't make sense. And then saying, rightly or wrongly, this comes across as a bid for attention. Now, rightly or wrongly is great language, because rightly or wrongly removes ego from it. It's like, I might be wrong. Maybe there's something going on here I don't know about. Rightly or wrongly, this feels like a bid for attention, or this comes across like a bid for attention. Not you're an attention seeker, not how dare you, but this is how it's coming across. And of course, when you say all of that, someone is pretty naked, which I was, and I think what's really important about this story is the part I haven't said yet, which is that message did not result in us suddenly reuniting in a much more intentional way. We went our separate ways after that for a while. And I say that because I took that as, oh, I'm going to back off because clearly our intentions are different, and I get it. And I caught myself being selfish in that moment, and her pointing it out made it very clear to me, like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work for me. So I said, fine. But when I backed off, she didn't send me a message a week later saying, so how, what are you up to? She said, he's gone away, and that's the right thing, because it wasn't a tactic. She wasn't employing a tactic. It was a standard. When we employ a tactic, if it doesn't get the result we want, we just go switch to another tactic. But if something's a standard, it's who we are. And for her, it was a standard. It was who she was. And the reason it was who she was, and the reason she stuck to it, is because she had been down the opposite path enough times to know that it just was never going to work for her again, that there was no happiness that resided in that place. So it didn't matter how much she liked me. It was truly irrelevant. All that was relevant was, okay, she liked me. That got me my ticket to the party. But if I had no intentionality, then it was worthless to her. And that's what allowed her to walk away. And that's what underpins standards, is we have to decide what's valuable to us today. If we decide what's valuable to us today is the same as what's always been valuable to us, then we'll keep making the same choices. But if something else becomes more valuable to us, then we won't be swayed just because someone has a certain look, or we like them, or we find them sexy, or whatever it is that draws us to a person. It just will register that as worthless without the thing we really value, which in Audrey's case was consistency, true intention, someone who wants to build something, someone who actually wanted to be in an exclusive relationship, someone who made her feel safe and wanted. These were the things that mattered the most to her in that period of her life. And that's why nothing else did matter when, whatever might have felt shiny about the situation, it didn't matter to her.
First of all, I love that differentiation between a tactic versus a standard. A lot of things I'm doing with my toddler came up. I need to bring in more of those standards than the tactics, because I'm just throwing around tactics here and there sometimes. The other part is, I am now so invested in yours and Audrey's relationship that this whole episode might be an unraveling of how we got from that place to now you guys are married. So that walking away is so important, because she's defining what she's looking for in a relationship. That's where I went wrong pretty much all of the past relationships. There was a period of time where I was like, I had so many standards, and my standard was to be alone, and that was really good for me. And I'm proud of myself for that. But I'm curious about, how does that then move? Was it an accidental meeting? What kind of reflection did you do after that moment?
Well, I think I continued to make myself unhappy for a little while. And again, I think, like, there's no simple story in life, really, right? We distill our pasts into these neat and tidy kind of stories, but the truth is, it wasn't that simple. I was, in some areas, I really enjoyed my life and found a lot of meaning and happiness, and then in this area, I felt like I was it went through bursts of happiness, followed by disruption and chaos and heartbreak, and not knowing what I wanted. And then, something else comes along and you feel a burst of happiness again, or you think, like, it was just or I just was on my own for a while. And so that, for me, in those times, it wasn't one simple story. I think when our life is just at some sort of rock bottom, there's a kind of, at a certain point, there's only one way to go from here. But when we're comfortable, then that could be quite a dangerous place to be. And I think for a lot of my love life, I was comfortable, but when me and Audrey met back up again, it was very clear to me, and this was months and months later, but it was just very clear to me that, oh, here is this person that I have to take seriously if I'm going to be here. And she was quite clear about that herself. She was like, when we met back up again, the moment it started to go down an intimate road, she was like, just so you know, if this is going to go the same way as last time, I'm not interested. This is not interesting to me. It has to, if we're going to do this, it has to actually be because we're seeing where it goes. That she was just never, she was never unclear about that to me. That was never she never at any point shut her eyes and said, I'm just going to see what happens. It was not what so many people do, where they check back in a year and say, so, what's going on? And then they're horrified to learn that someone's position or feelings haven't changed at all in that time. One of the things I talk about in this book is this idea of bewaring avoiders, because of course, we sometimes find ourselves in the company of a genuine pathological liar, but far more often we're in the company of avoiders. And avoiders aren't necessarily about outright lying to you. Avoiders are people that just will avoid any conversation that could make life more difficult for them. And that's what so many people find themselves in their dating lives, is they date someone where 6 months in, that person will come to me and say, Matthew, here are all the facts. What do you think? Do you think this person likes me? Where do you think it's going? And I want to say, I should be the second person you're talking to about this, but instead I'm the first. How have you not had this conversation with them about what the two of you are, or how you see things, or what your intentions are? Why hasn't that happened yet? And the reason it hasn't happened is because they're afraid to have the conversation in case they get an answer they don't want. It's far easier to carry on in the romance of it all and to just bask in that and feel good in that and continue the hope that it might go somewhere, than it is to have a conversation that might spell the end of whatever this thing is. So the danger is that someone else is relying on us being afraid to have the conversation so that they can continue to avoid the conversation, because they know if they have the conversation, they're going to have to tell you something you don't want to hear. And then you're either going to have to stay and live in the cognitive dissonance that you're here, even though this person has wildly different intentions than you, or you might leave and that person doesn't want you to leave because they're enjoying getting what they're getting. So I always say an avoider needs another avoider to exist. An avoider can't exist on their own. And that's why what we see over and over again in love is people who are avoiders find people who are also avoiders, because that's how they flourish. I flourish by you never asking me what this is, so that a year from now, when you ask me what it is, I can say, "What are you talking about? We're just having a nice time. We're friends. We're just seeing each other. What do you mean you thought it was more?" People rely on you not having. People rely on you not advocating for your needs, so that they can continue to get what they want in exactly the form that they want to have it.
Sometimes I wish I could go back and test my self-worth in new relationship. But it's such an important lesson, and it can get tricky because especially women, so many women don't want to be the person who pushes too much too soon. And so when is appropriate for that conversation? I'm sure it varies depending on the relationship, how quickly you two fell. And so one of the things that you talk about in your book is the danger of making someone too important too quickly, and how that can affect your self-worth. And so where's that line of, still teasing to see if I always felt like I was waiting to see if I could hook them, like how cool can I be and for how long, to where they don't want to not have these moments together anymore, rather than like, this is what I needed in a relationship. This is what I deserve. It was like,
Yeah.
how do I hook them? What do they need? What are they looking for? And I was always making that person too important, even when I wasn't super interested in the relationship, because the way they responded to me was a direct reflection of my self-worth in that period of time. So what do you advise there?
Well, it's important to understand why, what's going on when we get swept up so quickly in the first place. There's a, for so many of us, what we're experiencing is a nervous system response to somebody else. We are, for us, why is it that someone we just had a great date with cannot text us back for 2 days, and it feels like we're going to die. It feels like we can't sleep, we can't eat, we can't do anything. What is going on there? Well, we feel unsafe. We feel fundamentally unsafe. I've suddenly I've nominated this person as the answer to my internal lack of safety, to the fact that I think I need another person in order to be happy or in order to feel safe. And now that I've found someone I have a connection with, or that, it feels good with, I feel like I can't lose this person, or I won't be okay. I'm going to be abandoned by this person. And that triggers us. So there's all this stuff going on that really has nothing to do with the other person. It has nothing to do with how special they are. It has nothing to do with their value in your life. It has nothing to do with how great the relationship will be. It's just to do with our own wounds. And we therefore have to be really conscious when our internal story is telling us that someone is really important, that this is it, this is the person, when really what's going on is we're anxious and afraid, and our body has gone into fight or flight. So there's that. There's also, we have a tendency to measure the value of someone in our lives by the intensity of their impact in the early stages. But how great of a date you had isn't a reflection of someone's character. It's just a reflection of their impact. Character can only be measured over time. It can't be measured on a date. You don't even know the person. No matter how great the date was, you could have had the most incredible connection you've ever experienced for 3 hours. You don't know the person. You have no idea who they are. All you know is that they had a tremendous impact on you. And by the way, some of the worst people in the world are the best at creating immediate impact. So we have to take on more of a we'll see approach to relationships. Give them time to actually show you who they are. And instead of measuring someone's impact as a marker of their value, saying, their impact just meant I had a great date. Their character, their values how they show up in my life is going to be the measure of how great they are to have a relationship with. And if I don't see those things, then their impact is truly irrelevant to me. And that doesn't mean that every hour of our time we spend with someone, we check in with someone and say, just so you know, unless you want a relationship, there's no, I'm not going to be here for the next hour. It's not that. We have to decide. It's all about energy management. It's about saying, if I have really great qualities, if I have beautiful energy, if my love is valuable, if the way I treat people in my life who I care about is precious, then those things I need to value them appropriately. And I need to decide, because I don't have endless amounts of those things. I certainly don't have endless time. I know I don't have endless energy. So I need to decide where to take these beautiful things I have and where to direct them. And it's not about placing an expectation on someone. It's about trying to know. It's just about figuring out whether you're someone I should be putting these beautiful things into. It suddenly doesn't feel like a big deal to say to someone, if you had a couple of amazing dates with someone, but then you don't hear from them for 3 weeks, but then they want to see you again that night, it feels entirely appropriate, albeit maybe playfully at that stage, to say to someone, you're 2 weeks late with this message. And they're going to be like, what do you mean? Well, we had such a great time last time. This was the message you were supposed to send the next day. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've been so busy or whatever. Hey, totally get it. I'm busy too. But I had a great time with you. And one of the things that's I value is when someone shows me that they want to see me again, and I just didn't hear from you for 2 weeks. So, I'd started to assume that we're on different wavelengths or that we're on different paths. There's no pressure to that. You're just pointing out, I'm not afraid to say that I give my energy to things that feel like good investments. And when you didn't text me for 2 weeks, it started to feel like you weren't a very good investment. So given that I'm valuing appropriately what I have to give, I started to direct it elsewhere. And when someone hears that, they start to learn who you are. Remember, people don't tell us what we're worth. We tell them what we're worth. It's a big difference. And sometimes people mistake our worth and they get it wrong, and we have to correct them. That's what a standard is. In case you were mistaken, this is my worth. It's not for you to tell me, it's for me to tell you. And that, when you think like that, it really does change the game on how people treat us. And even if it doesn't, we save all of our time and energy, because someone who doesn't adapt to our standard is someone that we don't date for 6 months or a year or 2 years or spend 10 years of our life going back and forth with, only to say, I'm just so burnt out in my love life. We get burnt out in our love life most of the time because we are giving too much energy to the wrong people. And then we have no energy left for the right people, which is one of the greatest tragedies that so many people face.
I love that. And I also am realizing, when you're giving too much energy to the wrong person, you're not giving enough energy to yourself. And that's exactly what you need to really find that self-worth first, so that you can communicate it to the other person. Like you said, you can't wait until you feel valued in a relationship to all of a sudden have self-value, have self-worth. You have to find that first. And then it starts to be reflected back to you. People will meet you there or show you very clearly that they don't deserve you, not the other way around. Yeah. But it's so difficult to get to, especially when we're young. I don't know if I was just, I don't know, maybe it was the divorced household, not having a father. I don't know what it was, but I feel like I was like the worst, like pretty bad at all that when I was young. And I just go back, and it's one of my deepest desires to just like empower the youth of women, to say, like, you don't need to have this, what you call in your book, the scarcity mindset in relationships. I had it in relationships and friendships. I was always trying to prove that I was worthy of being in the room. And so,
Well, yeah. It's I think that what happens is we come of age, and then many of us, especially those of us that had reasons to feel insecure or to question our worth, or we have some form of trauma that we're taking forward in our lives, we go into the world looking for a person who is going to take care of us, a person who is going to make us feel like we're okay, a person that's going to make us feel like we've arrived or that we're enough, or that we have closure on some situation from the past. And we often, very few of us ever learn, and I'm talking in our entire lives, not at 21. Very few of us ever learn that it's actually our job to take care of ourselves. It is there isn't a person we have to go out there and find to take care of us. We are the human we are in charge of. And I like to think of it like, when we were born, we were given a human, and someone told us, hey, just so you know, for the rest of your life, your job, your one job, is to take care of this human. Nurture them, encourage them, show up for them, stand up for them, be kind to them, pick them up when they fall, support them. Your only job. You may take on other jobs. You may volunteer for other jobs like friendship or marriage or raising children or a career. You'll volunteer for other jobs. But the one job you'll always have, your number one job, is to take care of the human that is you. When you look at things through that lens, you stop obsessing over what you don't have, or ways you feel deficient, or ways you don't feel as attractive as this person, or as skinny as this person, or as young as this person, or whatever it may be, whatever your insecurity is that you're telling yourself, I don't have enough of this. You don't look at life through that lens anymore, because you realize comparison is silly. I can't exchange my human for another human. I get one human. And by the way, I'm lucky that I get one human, right? Most of the sperm that ever existed never became a human, right? So I get one human, and my job is not to question what that human has. My job is just to give that human the best life possible. And when you think of it through that lens, you're not trying to find anyone to make you enough anymore. You're trying to make sure this human is in an environment and around people that give them the possibility of happiness. And that does not include putting your human in the company of someone who constantly treats them badly. It's no longer an option. So put someone in an abusive situation, to put myself, my human, in an abusive situation, or in a situation where they're constantly made to feel like they're not good enough, or they're constantly disrespected or betrayed or lied to. If I do that, I'm sleeping on the job. I've left my post. In times where I'm burnt out and I feel like I'm like struggling, I'm really struggling. I look at myself and I'm like, Matthew, where have you been? You had one job. One job, take care of this human. And where have you been? That mindset changes everything. Because if you change your mindset from or from that egoic place of what would I do if I was trying to feel worthy today? Oh, I would finally get this person. I would finally get them to like me. When you change your emphasis from that to what would I do if I was trying to give my human the best life possible today, the answers naturally become very, very different. So for anyone who does read the book, there's a chapter in the book called Core Confidence, and you'll read all about what I'm talking about here in that chapter. And for me, it's been one of the most powerful ways of approaching confidence. For me, it is the most powerful way of approaching confidence that I've ever discovered.
It reminds me of the idea of being the observer, because in a way you're not identifying too much with that human. You're realizing it's just your job to care for him.
Yes.
And for some reason, the visual that came into my mind, I used to watch movies like what's the one where Drew Barrymore like goes back as a high school student? Why can't I remember the name? I don't watch a lot of movies anymore, but she like goes back to her high school, Josie Grossi something. People will know what I'm talking about. And she like is finally the cool kid instead of the made fun of one. And I always was like, that'd be so cool to do, like go back to high school with what I know now. And then I thought, if I was allowed to go back to high school with what I know now, my experience would have nothing to do with other people. It would be like, how can I teach myself digital marketing so I really set my life up for later? Like it's a totally different focus.
Yeah.
Like those people didn't matter. But and the people that aren't going to treat you like the goddess that you are also don't matter, because you're choosing who you're going to surround yourself with. And in doing that, we become sort of a product of our environment. And so does that mean that we're a victim of it? No, it means we should be cultivating our environment and the people around us and who we settle for, and create our standards from the inside out so that what's reflected back to us is the positive choices that we make and the worth that we're reinforcing. And so I love leaving listeners with like one core concept to really focus on this week, to drill what we've learned, grounded into their lives. If you were going to give them one piece of growth work, whether it's a thought experiment or an actual activity to do, what would that be?
So pay attention to the moments where your normal reflex kicks in, whether it's the reflex to be, I'll use a quick example. There's a woman that I coached who, she was dating a guy who by all accounts had been quite lovely. And then he had a little gathering with his friends and he didn't invite her. And it really triggered her. She felt abandoned. She felt she wasn't good enough. She felt like he must not like her as much as she liked him. She was going to get hurt. And she started to become very avoidant in the days leading up to it. And then on the day, she couldn't help herself. In the middle of him being with his friends, she sent him a text and said, "Why didn't you invite me?" And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I haven't seen these friends in a while and I didn't mean anything by it. Can I call you later?" And she wrote back, "Don't bother." And really just pushed him away. And for her, the biggest thing that she wanted to avoid in life was being abandoned, right? And here she was precipitating the very thing that she wanted the least, right? But rejecting him before he could really reject her. Not that we even know he was going to reject her. What I invite everyone listening to this episode to do is to look for the moments this week where you send the "don't bother" text, whatever that means to you. A moment where you become avoidant, or a moment where you become anxious, a moment where you try too hard, or a moment where you don't try hard enough. What's a moment where you get activated and you start running your script? Because that message from her that said "don't bother" wasn't a new thing. It was something she had been doing in one way or another for most of her life. Start to just get curious about a different way that you could approach the situation. Even if it's a 1% shift from what you would normally do. Even if she had, instead of saying "don't bother," she had said, "Yeah, I'll talk to you later." And then he called and she said, "I got in my head about something today." And then even if then she let him have it, at least she'd be on the phone. That's a 1% difference than what she'd normally do, which is, "I'm not even going to take the phone call because screw him. I'm not doing this." A 1% shift. Because what happens when we take a 1% shift is we get a subtly different result than we're used to. And when that happens, it gives us this concept that there is a different reality than the one we're used to. That how we have, the results we've got in our whole lives don't have to be the results we'll always get. The past does not have to equal the future. By doing something subtly different to what you normally do, you can start to create a different reality than the one you've had so far. And don't try to do something perfect that means you suddenly get the exact result you want. Just go for different, because different is all you need to start changing your belief that what's been happening for you so far in your life is all you can get. That's the thing we're trying to change. We're not trying to do something perfectly. We're just trying to teach ourselves that our past does not have to equal our future, that the world as we see it as we know it isn't the world at large, that there are 1,000 different ways to operate in this life. And the way that we've been operating is just one of them. So my invitation to everyone is to make a 1% shift in your reactions this week. Whatever that means for you, whatever way you get triggered or activated that sends you down, it threatens to send you down the same familiar path. Try a 1% shift from a place of curiosity in how you react to the situation, and allow that curiosity to bring you some different results than you've been getting. And that will start to mess with your beliefs about life. And that's a very positive thing to do.
I love that reflection. It's so timely too. My coaching group is called Soul Strength Activation. And what we're focusing on right now is all around that, how much our identity creates our habits. And we have to shift the identity. And in order to actually change the way that we be in this world, there's just a quote: every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence for your new identity. And so thank you so much for everything that you shared today. This was such an insightful conversation. I loved being taken through your love story and just being able to kind of break it down to see how we can all learn from Audrey. So
that should be the title of my next book.
Yeah. For listeners that are resonating as much as I am, where's the best place to find you and your book, Love Life?
So the book is called Love Life: How to Raise Your Standards, Find Your Person, and Live Happily No Matter What. It's been a true labor of love for 4 years of my life. It's designed to be a co-pilot for anyone who wants to find love and who also wants to find more confidence and peace and happiness along the way too, so that you're not deferring those things until the time that you do find love. You can find it at lovelifebook.com. When you get there, you can get it from any retailer you want. But what's cool about that website is I actually have an event on May the 4th that I'm doing virtually for every single person who gets a copy of the book. It's an exclusive for everyone who gets the book, and it's called Find Your Person. And at that event, we're going to take all of the ideas from the book and bring them to life in people's year this year, especially if their intention is to find their person. So that's all at lovelifebook.com.
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/345. Your challenge for this week is to start becoming more aware of your reactions, your natural instinctive responses. Most often, these are conditioned through our past experiences, past traumas, past relationships, and they start to become unconscious, on autopilot. And this is why you end up in those same cyclical, repeated relationships, patterns, behaviors, all the things. So the first step is awareness. With awareness comes all of the opportunity for change. But often we think that because we have that awareness, that suddenly we need to completely do a 180. But that is setting ourselves up for failure. And that can cause a lot of judgment and shame around what we are actually capable of. And judgment and shame create downward spirals that often make everything worse. So instead, see if you could subtly shift those responses. Can it be 1% different? Can you even just create a little space between your noticing and your actual response? A lot of times that is enough to defuse your reaction a little bit. Let me know how it goes. This is a work in progress. You are a work in progress your whole life. And that doesn't mean that you're broken to start with. It means that that's what we came here for. Life experience, baby. It's beautiful and fun and hard and insufferable sometimes. But the depth of your pain is often the vastness of your pleasure and joy. So remember that. You are a powerful creator. You're always creating your reality. And it's with this awareness that you gain the control to do so. And no, I'm not saying that you have control over life. That's just silly. But you do have control over your reactions to life. And that's usually where you can either create the most suffering or the most joy. So let me know how it goes. Reach out to me on Instagram at mindlovemelissa. Also, there's some really exciting things coming up. The Mind Love Retreat. I've had so many of you ask me about this opportunity, and I am pulling out all the stops. I'm even doing retreat research this year, going on my own to bring the best of the best. We're going to have a luxury mansion in the mountains, 5 days of exclusive transformative coaching, nature, elevation, friendships of like-minded people on a similar path, an in-suite chef with gourmet organic food. It's going to be so wonderful. The theme is all around shifting from stress, struggle, and suffering to a state of flow, ease, and peace. My theme for this year is how can you let it be easy? And that's what we're really diving into because it has completely transformed my life and I want to bring it to you. So if you want to meet me in the mountains in September, reach out to me, ask about it. You can also check out the page at mindlove.com/retreat. We also have a new cohort of soul strength activation coming up as well. Reach out to me on Instagram and ask about that. And all of my amazing sponsors can be found at mindlove.com/sponsors. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.
E-commerce business owners know a successful business keeps customers happy. That's why smart retailers use ShipStation. Turn shoppers into loyal customers with cheaper, faster, and better shipping. Manage all your orders and returns in one place and save up to 90% on rates from all the global carriers. Go to shipstation.com/program to sign up for your free trial. No credit card required, and you can cancel anytime. That's shipstation.com/program.
In the time it takes you to actually board a flight from Group 8,
now boarding Premier Altitude Elite Club members.
You could have bought a Hyundai on Amazon. Visit HyundaiUSA.com or call 562-314-4603 for more details. Limited availability, pickup through participating Hyundai dealer in select markets.